Welcome everyone to Project and Portfolio 5 Artist Development in the Music Business Program. In this video, we're going to focus on storytelling. This is a quick, short little video, just a few things I want to touch on when it comes to telling a story. So, when it comes to storytelling, people gravitate towards stories. Even writers in the industry, right? So if you are trying to get someone to write about your artist or pay attention to your artist, how are you going to grab their attention? It's through story. What is the artist's story? What makes them unique outside of their music? So most music journalists and writers and broadcasters don't really know about time signatures and keys and notes and or really how to play music or read music. They write and tell stories about culture and events and just creating a scene. They like writing about a scene or something significant that happened in an artist. So here are some things to consider when trying to put together your artist story. So now when it comes to your press release, your bio, your pitch to someone, try to always include something that does not have to do with the artist's music, because that's where the stories are. That's what they're going to write about. That's what they're going to want to talk about. So always focus on your story as well and include that in your artist. So anything that does not have to do with the music itself. So when it comes to your story, here's some things to consider. Where is the artist from? What's their hometown? And how does that play into their story, right? So with all these things, try to think about how that plays into your artist story. What about culture? What's their culture? What's their family background? Are there any cultural traits or characteristics that stand out with the artist that are memorable, that are unique, that are different? What about their lifestyle? Is there something about their lifestyle that's different? Are they paleo? Are they vegan? Are they a CrossFitter? Are they a traveler? Are they a vagabond? I don't know. What's it about their lifestyle that makes them different? What about their values and beliefs? Is there a specific value or belief? Are they part of a group that is different, that makes them stand out? What about their experiences? Did they experience something in the past that really is unique and is different? Did they overcome some kind of crazy challenges in their life? Did they overcome cancer or any other illnesses? Were they born and weren't able to speak for the first 20 years of their life, and then all of a sudden they have this amazing, beautiful voice? It doesn't always have to be that dramatic, but these are things to think about. It can be even simple challenges, right? Did they overcome some kind of big obstacle, a learning disability, and still graduate from high school with a 4.0 GPA? Or just think of any kind of big challenges they may have overcome. What about skills and talents? What other skills and talents do they have? Are there any skills and talents outside of music? Are they a phenomenal dancer or a great actor? Do they play multiple instruments? Do they play 6, 7 different instruments? That's all things are unique and stand out, right? What about relationships? Are there any relationships that stand out? Is there one of their parents someone that has been a musician or famous or in politics or whatever it is, or a successful entrepreneur? What about their brothers and sisters or their cousins, their uncles, their aunts? Try to think of all these things. And remember that story is an ongoing narrative, right? It's always ongoing. So an example would be the Foo Fighters. When you think of the Foo Fighters, the first thing you think of is Dave Grohl is the drummer from Nirvana, of the band where the singer died, right? So try to, and then even think with Foo Fighters, their story is an ongoing narrative. It's constantly changing, right? So in the mid 90s, that was the thing that everyone focused on. But now, today's world, like, Dave Grohl is a historian of music. He's a supporter of music. He's someone that collaborates with a lot of musicians. He's um, big into the culture of music. So these are all things that have made Foo Fighters who they are, right? They're big about giving back. So it's always an ongoing narrative. So you have where your story is today is not where your story is going to be in 6 months or a year from now. So to always try to keep a timeline of significant events that happen throughout your journey and how those can play into your story. I love Instagram because it's a way to tell visual stories. And here's a couple of quick examples. So always remember storytelling in your social media platforms and everything that you do. On Instagram, for example, try to think of a few categories that make up who your artist is, right? What and it has to do with the music and not to do with the music. You want to be able to tell a visual story. So the first example on the left is Michael Franti. He's if you look him up, I guarantee you, if you search him on Spotify or YouTube, there's a song that you'll recognize, and that he's been a mainstream artist. But even to this day, he still has a very loyal and strong fan base. He'll do 500 to 1,000 people a show in many different markets throughout the world. And Michael Franti, so if you look at his Instagram stream, all of his categories are either have to do with fan appreciation, so really appreciating and loving his fans, going into the audience and dancing with their fans and giving them high fives. He's big into yoga and a healthy lifestyle, even in his VIP meet and greets. So their meet and greets, instead of going to just meet the artist, you're doing yoga with Michael Franti at the venue, which is pretty cool. That's unique and different, right? He's big on giving back to the less fortunate, giving back to at-risk youth, and he's big into love and relationships and his wife. So you'll see a lot of pictures with him traveling with his wife and doing nice things for his wife. And he has songs that he's written about relationships and love and his wife. And when he play live, he incorporates that too. Like one of the songs, I believe it's called "Better Than You" or "Better with You." Life is better with you. And he has couples come on stage and dance on stage with him. So it's really cool how he incorporates all these things into his brand. The Rock. So The Rock, who's in the middle, when you look at his Instagram feed, again, remember like all the ways, the things that make up his brand. So his brand is big into supporting the troops in the military. You'll see a lot of things from behind the scenes and movie sets, that stuff that makes him like authentic and humanizes him a little bit. So it's not just of him actually in a scene of a movie, but just hanging out with some of the actors and people that are in the movie. You'll see a lot of things about keeping fit and healthy and eating clean and exercising, right? And also some things about wrestling. It's not so much part of his brand anymore, but that's of course where his brand started. So you'll see a lot of those kinds of things in Instagram feed. And then one of my favorite bands, Metallica, in their most recent album, they have done such a phenomenal job in promoting that album. You see a lot of behind the scenes footage of the band and kind of just see who they are as people. You see their kind of personality a little bit in some of the videos. Again, also really big into fan appreciation. There's a lot of pictures of them at meet and greets with fans and giving their fans gifts. They're giving them guitars or drumsticks or even like drum heads and surprising fans with gifts, and they are really super excited about all the gifts they're getting. And they also kind of show a little bit more of a funny side, and more show their personality a little bit as well. So it's not just the serious rock band. One cool video to look up is look up Metallica, Enter Sandman, and Jimmy Fallon. You'll see a cool little video with them and the Roots just having fun playing an old Metallica song. So these are ways of building a visual story. So how do you start building your story? How do you come up with your story, right? So remember in the branding video I said, your music is the last thing that matters, and once they hear it, it's the only thing that matters. So if you are a person starting out, if you're working with an artist starting out, and they're young and they don't really have much that has happened in their life yet, how do you start crafting their story? So here's a few things to keep in mind. Artists always assume that their story has to be dramatic, and it does not have to be dramatic. There's a lot of things that can make your story unique and stand out. So think about what does your music, why does your music connect with people, right? What is it about your music that gets people to your shows or gets people to listen to your music? How does it make people feel? And again, as I said earlier, your story is always ongoing. It's an ongoing narrative. And if you really just can't think of story, maybe think of creating a persona. There's some artists that have created some great, amazing, memorable personas, such as Alice Cooper, Marilyn Manson, Lady Gaga, and there's so many more, Madonna. So you can create a persona that is your story, right? So keep these things in mind. And here's some other things to consider when crafting your story. So first, put together a timeline. Like put a timeline of your musical development. How did you discover music? When did you first play music? What inspired you to play music? Who were your influences? Maybe describe each song in an album. Every song you wrote, describe that song on your album, setlist, or EP. Why are you playing? What was it that made you write this story, right? Every song has a story. So what was it that inspired you to write that story? What was it that inspired you to play a certain cover? What does that cover mean to you? So these are all things that make up your story. Or reflect on band members. So if it's a band, remember all the things in the first slide of the elements that make up someone's story. Do that with all the band members. What makes up their story and what makes them unique, and how does that stand out with the artist? List your top 5 or 10 performances. What was it that stood out at these performances? What happened at those performances that make up your story? And maybe any past press or feedback. Feedback from fans, feedback from family. What did people say when they saw you live or heard your music? How did it make them feel? So these are all things to consider when crafting your story. Now, how do you tell your story? So here's some different ways of telling your story. You can tell your story through photos, through videos, through animation, through blogs, through email, or through podcasts, right? So remember a top-down approach. So top-down kind of means it's video at top, then audio, and then written, right? So when you start at the top with video, you can repurpose that content into many, many different things, right? So videos at top because you can repurpose that video into the most types of ways to tell more story. You can take the video and create blog posts out of it. You can take the video and create tweets out of it. You can create social media posts out of it. You can create all kinds of written narratives out of a video. You can strip the audio from a video and create podcasts out of the audio, depending what the video is, or you can create songs out of the video, right? So video is always the highest level of content and ways to tell story because you can repurpose that into most types of things. But figure out the platform, the method that works best for you and your artist. Of course, audio will probably be part of every artist's way of telling their story because they are telling their story through their music. But how else will you tell the artist's story? Is it through video? Is it through audio? Is it written? Or is it some of all? So this kind of sets the foundation of storytelling, and you should have watched the other video of branding. So remember, you want to incorporate the story of the artist in everything that you do, in your pitches, in your bio, and in your press releases. And try to make sure that your artist's story stands out and gets the reader's attention. And if you have any questions, as always, feel free to reach out. Send me an email, send me a note. We'll love to answer any questions and help and be there for you guys any way I can. Thank you all for listening.